Welcome to Thoughts Roundup. Well, it's so nice to be with you again today. We was with Reverend Giat yesterday, and I am still at his church, and we are in Gulfport, Mississippi. And when I got here the other night, a pastor was gone, and he asked a young man by the name of Michael Wooten to see to my getting settled, and he was such a nice person. And I asked him to come on the program with me today. God bless you.
God bless you, Brother Marler.
Thank you for being here.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
So a lot of times when people, you mention to them about getting on the program, they get all scared or something. I appreciate you being willing to.
Yes, sir.
Just kind of nothing frightening about it. We just want to talk about some of the goodness and the mercy of God. You know, usually I have ministers. Sometimes I have their children and so forth. But I was impressed by your testimony and also by seeing your wife last night and everything. I understand that y'all are relatively new in the church.
Yes, sir, we are. For me, I was getting back in church. I backslid for
Just pause right there. Just tell people if it's all right, if it's good to backslide or not.
No, sir. That's definitely not the way to go.
Get you in trouble, won't it?
Yes, sir, it will. And only by the goodness and mercy of God, I made my way back.
You are blessed. Did you know that used to seems though people would get out of the church and they'd have a revival in the spring and they'd get back in, and it didn't last long. But you know, very few people are coming back now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I see that.
And I see a lot of people actually dying and knowing that they need to get back, but they just don't have that urge or that feeling, or either somebody has sold them on a bill of goods to tell them that it doesn't make any difference, they'll be all right anyway.
Right. Yes, sir. I thank the Lord that He, didn't take the love of the truth from me, because I see a lot of people they backslide and get out of the truth, and then they go and turn to to these false doctrines and to the Trinitarian doctrine. And I just thank God that that He didn't take His hand off of me.
I want to ask you kind of how deep in sin did you go? You don't have to go into it in detail, but
it started out with a little bit of smoking and hanging out with people that weren't in church, and it ended up with me staying out all night and going to the bars and drinking, and then from there it led up to doing drugs and getting locked up eventually. And
got locked up?
Yes, sir. Spending time in jail. And
oh boy.
Yes, sir. And at one point it ended up with me waking up in the hospital room with my heart rate all down real low. I was pretty much dead when I arrived to the hospital.
Now your wife, she didn't know much about the truth, did she?
She didn't. She
we don't go into other people's problems on church, but
yes, sir. She didn't grow up around the truth. her family, they were Christian,
Uh-huh.
but they, you know, they didn't have the truth. They didn't have the
They did
Jesus
basically
name.
they did kind of well, we don't want to go too deep into all that, but because we're not here to slam, you know, just here to talk about what God has done for us.
Yes, sir.
And I am so glad that you, how did it happen that you started feeling your way back?
I got to a point, you know, every day I you know, thought about God. I knew where I needed to be. I knew this was home.
You do that during the day?
I would do that during the day. I would, at nighttime, I would see where I was at that point in time, and I would think to myself, the Lord, if I died tonight, you know, I know where I would go. And it got to the point to where there wasn't nowhere else I could go. I'd hit rock bottom.
Now, your lady, did she, was she also a backslider, or?
She wasn't. She's heard about, you know, the church, and heard about, you know, the First Pentecostal Church of Orange Grove here. You know, my grandmother was a good influence on her. My grandma's been in church for 40 plus years, and so she knew what God was capable of doing. You know, she's heard the miracles and heard the testimonies from my grandmother, and so she, you know, she heard, but she, you know, she didn't know the truth. She didn't know, you know, the Acts 2:38 message. And it come to a point where both of us was just at a point in our lives where, you know, it was either we were going to end up dead, or, you know, we had to do something.
She was ready to do something.
She was ready to do something.
Well, I'll tell you what, I saw her worshiping last night.
Yes, sir.
She was just she was really worshiping God. You could tell she's very much into it.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's quite a testimony. And I just hope there's others out there that maybe listen to what you have to say and realize that they need to catch on.
That's right. Yes, sir. There's no other joy than living for the Lord.
Yeah. You know, you impressed me the first night when you met me. You said there was something that I had to pay for, and you said, I'll pay for it. I've been hunting some way all day to give something to the Lord.
Yes, sir.
And that impressed me. Of course, I surely didn't use that, but yet at the same time, I thought it was so nice for someone to say, I've been hunting some way to give something to the Lord all day.
Yes,
That's a nice way of, you know, there's a lot of ways of worshiping God.
Right.
You know, some people think praying is the only way.
That's right.
And some people think, well, just praising the Lord during song service, but there's a lot of ways that we can worship the Lord and give to the Lord and be pleasing to God.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, so you plan on sticking around a while?
I do. I'm not going anywhere.
You know,
by the grace of God. But this is my home, and you know, I'm sold out. I just, you know, I got my mind made up.
You know, you've got a good pastor.
I do. He's been a blessing to my family and I, and you know, he's like a father to me. You know, a spiritual father, and I can stand by him, and you know, I trust him just like I trust in the Lord.
Oh yeah. Well, that's super. Well, I'll tell you what. I don't think the Lord's not going to let you down, and I don't think your pastor will either, because he's such a good man, and he's a prayerful person.
Yes, sir.
Lives for God all the time, you know. And of course, I played golf with him, and you know, He'd beat you if he could.
Yes, sir.
Okay, listen, God bless you.
God bless you,
And
brother.
I appreciate you coming on the program.
Yes, sir.
Thank you a whole lot.
I appreciate you having me.